Hi everyone, Amy here with Never Grow Up Vacations, and now it's time to come fly with Amy. So today's topic is going to be a little bit of a talk to answer some Q&A questions, but the topic today is going to be cost-effective honeymoons. So honeymoons are so important. Most people get married once. I mean, I know there's some occasions, but for the most part, that's your first trip as husband and wife, or wife and wife, or husband and husband, whatever it may be. So it's a very important one because A, you've probably been stressed out from the wedding, and B, you just need time together to enjoy that moment and that experience of getting married. Obviously, from my own experience, I just got married a couple months ago, and our honeymoon was a little bit different than we thought it would be. We were expecting it to go to Europe, but COVID times, not going to Europe. So we ended up doing an all-inclusive at Breathless Punta Cana, which I do have videos posted about. But we had to be a little bit flexible, and now in the time of COVID travel, honeymoons are harder to plan than ever, but I think they're still just as fun. I mean, it's all about husband and wife, wife and wife, husband and husband, everyone being together and just enjoying that time alone to decompress and kind of take in what has just happened in your life. So let's talk a little bit about cost-effective honeymoons. The most common question I get about honeymoons is, where do I go? Most times people reach out to me and they're like, this is my budget, find me some options. Okay, that's fine. So a lot of we'll talk about international destinations as it relates to honeymoons first. So most of the time, my couples are looking for Punta Cana and or Cancun, Riviera Maya. Those are your most cost-effective international destinations. And as of today, they're the easiest to get into with all the COVID travel restrictions that are still in place. So that's usually my first recommendation if you're looking for cost effective. In terms of domestic, Disney can be cost effective. A lot of my honeymooners love Disney. I mean, who doesn't love to be an adult in Disney? Obviously me. But it's a great place to, literally spend your happily ever after. So a lot of my honeymooners do ask for Disney. Universal is also another great domestic honeymoon option if you're not looking for theme parks. Coast, every coast you can imagine is a great suggestion. Hilton Head is beautiful. All your Florida coasts, whether it be Miami, whether it be Naples, Sarasota, Destin, any single coast is a great option. Some of my honeymoon couples, they're like, send me north. I want to see the fall foliage. I love it. So when you're thinking about cost-effective honeymoons, think about first what your airfare is going to cost, because airfare some days can be a little bit steep. So you got to be smart about that. Always try to get direct if you can, especially with, delays and weather. Direct's your best bet, because even if you're delayed a little bit, it won't affect the rest of your trip. So that's my first couple recommendations on where to go. So something I'm just gonna throw in here as very important to remember. COVID is still a thing, and as it relates to travel, the travel rules and restrictions are ever changing. When I say ever changing, I'm looking up changes to destinations daily, and they still change. They change at the drop of a hat in terms of COVID testing guidelines. They change at the drop of a hat. Some places are saying vaccinated visitors only. It's really important, especially with international travel right now, to stay on top of that. The thing you don't want happening is you having this amazing honeymoon booked and you get to your destination and you're either turned away or sent home. It happens. I hear stories all the time. So important message here is book with a trusted travel agent who will stay on top of that so that you are not put in a circumstance where your honeymoon's ruined, because it does happen. So make sure that you are on top of that, be a little bit flexible because things are going to keep changing. I mean, let's be honest, things could be like this for a couple more years to come. So you don't want A, your money going down the drain, and B, you don't want to be turned away at your honeymoon because that would be like a nightmare. Whenever I'm working on a honeymoon, I always like to ask, when is your wedding? Because some people, you know, depending on your work situation, how many days you can get off for that celebration, sometimes people are like, I'm ready to leave the next day. But keep in mind, you might be out partying to the wee hours. I know my own wedding, we didn't go to bed till like 4 a.m. It was late. And luckily we were not leaving the next day. For me and my own personal honeymoon, we took 2 days off to recuperate, to send family off, to like get ourselves in the right headspace for a honeymoon. So when you think about when to go, first, you know, you have to obviously, based upon your own circumstance, give yourself at least a day if you can. If you do choose to leave the day after your honeymoon, try to book that latest flight you can, because that morning you're gonna wake up and you are gonna be tired, like real tired. So it's really important that you think about that. I have a lot of honeymooners now, more so than previously. They're waiting on their honeymoon. They're doing their wedding, getting that done with, and then doing it, you know, 2-3 months later. So it's really important for you to think about, you know, you don't want to get to your honeymoon exhausted. You don't want to be stressed out getting there. You don't want to be worried about not being able to wake up the next morning because you're tired or maybe hungover. So that's really important to consider when you're, you know, picking your dates. One of the questions I get asked a lot is, what is a reasonable price range for a honeymoon? Of course, I can only, you know, give you an idea. I would say reasonable, flights, food, all of the stuff included, I'd say about $2,000 for a reasonable week-long honeymoon. Now, granted, I can price something out cheaper than that, especially if you're really looking for cost effective. Heck, road trips nowadays, people are doing road trip honeymoons and they're way less money than $2,000. $2,000 is based upon a week-long honeymoon and an all-inclusive. But again, you know, you can do it for a lot cheaper. A lot of my couples nowadays are doing 4-night honeymoons. Nobody said you have to go on a honeymoon for a week. Granted, we all want to be on vacation forever and ever, at least I know I do. But you don't have to feel like you have to be gone for a week. I mean, you know, a honeymoon is just time to relax and really take in what's just happened and be with your spouse. And it can be just that in 4 days. It doesn't have to be a week. But my recommendation on a reasonable price would be around $2,000, everything included. To be honest with you, that's around the range that we paid for our own honeymoon, but I will be upfront and disclose that we did use some airline points to at least help with the airfare portion, which again, if you're looking for cost effective, remember your airline points, remember your hotel points. You know, you can allocate some of that to your vacation. There's nothing wrong with that. So just a couple tips here for saving money while on your honeymoon. First, baggage for airlines. It can get steep. Like when you really break it down, if you fly with your budget carrier, such as like a Spirit or a Frontier, baggage can get really expensive. Like, yeah, you might have paid, you know, $70 for your one-way trip to Punta Cana, but you might be looking at $130 of baggage per way. So do your research on baggage and be smart about that. So for example, if you're a couple going and let's say you are flying a low-cost carrier, consider packing one bag. You know, most of the time you're going to be maybe on a beach in a bathing suit. Like you don't need to, you know, pack your entire wardrobe, says the lady that overpacks over here. But really, like, really think that out. Really take the time to be strategic about that. So that's my first tip. My second tip is if you are in the United States, domestic anywhere, buy your wine at the liquor store. Not earth-shattering, right? But it's so true. Like, how many times do we all go to a bar on vacation and one round of drinks is $30 all the time. So you times that by, let's say, 3 rounds per night, times that by 7, you're looking at a bar bill of like $400 easily, and that doesn't include food. So think smartly when you're doing your honeymoon, especially domestic. Now, I would not recommend, walking down to Punta Cana in the little markets and trying to pick up some alcohol. Would not recommend that. If you're doing an all-inclusive, your booze is included anyways. But domestic, go to the grocery store and or liquor store and just stock up. That's a huge money saver. And you still don't feel like you're deprived. Like, go out, have one drink, and then come back and enjoy yourself in your room and relax. So that's my second tip. My third tip is to, when you're planning your extracurricular activities, tours, spas, excursions, whatever it may be, plan out that ahead of time and look at the cost. Like, how many times do you get somewhere and you're like, oh, I want to swim with the dolphins, and then you price out the dolphins and you're there and you're like already in and committed, and it's like $200 a person. Like, go in knowing what that price is going to be and really evaluating, like, do I need to have my heart set on this, or can I maybe do something that's a little bit more cost effective? So go in knowing those prices. Just some parting thoughts here. The world is changing. Tradition is not always tradition. I know in the case of our wedding, we paid for almost all of it. I know in some of the olden days, parents used to pay for weddings. Weddings used to be a couple $1,000s. Now all of a sudden they're $50,000. Times are changing, and so are the way honeymoons are structured. Do not feel like you need to go to St. Lucia for a week and a half. Do not feel like you have to be in Bora Bora. Like, you do what you're comfortable with. Nobody, absolutely nobody, wants to come back from a wedding and be like, man, I have, $20,000 on my credit card from the wedding. Oh, and then now I have this $3,000 honeymoon that I'm paying off. Like, nobody wants that stress of, this great big grand moment of your life, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, money. So be reasonable when you're picking out your honeymoon, when you're really choosing your destination. Work with a travel agent who's willing to work to your budget, not to what they want to sell you. It's so important to be upfront with what you want to spend, and if you're working with a good travel agent, they will adhere to your budget and respect your budget. That is so important. My last parting message also is just be flexible. COVID travel is not fun. It is changing. Flights are delayed. Flights are having issues. Destinations are opening and closing and opening and closing, and it's just so unexpected sometimes. So be flexible. Do not have your heart broken if your first honeymoon doesn't pan out. It happened to us. I mean, we canceled our honeymoon 7 days prior and rebooked it because we were concerned about the COVID situation where we were originally going, and we felt better rebooking. I didn't expect to rebook my honeymoon 7 days prior, but it just goes to show, be flexible. Your honeymoon's gonna be amazing. You and your spouse are going to make it amazing. Just be flexible, work with a trusted travel advisor who will help you, support you, and respect what you want. I hope you enjoyed today's chat and Q&A about cost-effective honeymoons. I'm hoping to do a lot more of these small videos, just kind of educating and talking about what travel is like now. I get so many questions about these types of topics. So if you'd like to hear anything specific, feel free to drop your comments down below. If you're looking to book a cost-effective or not cost-effective honeymoon, reach out to me. I would like to consider myself the honeymoon queen right now, anniversary trip queen as well. Because I'm the epitome of a honeymoon because I just went on one. I feel like I am very knowledgeable about these topics because I just did it myself. So feel free to reach out to me if you are hopefully getting married soon and booking your honeymoon. Drop your comments down below. My contact information is down below as well. Until then, happy travels. Bye.